Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Good afternoon, and this is your host, Katrina Madewell with Charles Rutenberg Realty, and you're listening to Tampa Home Talk here on the Real Estate Radio Network. I'm very excited to have you listening to our show today. You can catch us here on 1340, 1350, and 1400 every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. Super excited to have in studio with me today Scott Leroy and Mike Thackrey with Fieldstone Landscape and Design Services. No, I'm adding words to the name of your company already.
Right on.
See?
That's right. That's okay.
Fieldstone Landscape Services. Thanks for joining me this afternoon, gentlemen. How you doing?
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks
you guys
for having us.
were so much fun during the planning meeting. I could hardly wait to have you on air today. So
Pretty excited.
We kind of enjoy life, if you will.
absolutely. I agree with you. You have to roll with the punches and have fun while you're doing it.
Right on.
So true.
So the topic of our show today is going to be property maintenance, spring spruce up, if you will. I got that one from Jen. And preparation and landscape design. And I think we're right about that time of year where it's a great time to be thinking about some of the things you can do to change your landscape. There's many plants, obviously, that are seasonal. I know you guys are going to get into some of those things as well as palms and different ideas and show off a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah.
So who wants to start first? Talk about Fieldstone. Who are you guys as a company? You know, where'd you come from and how long you've been in business? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my name is Mike Thackrey. Started this business about 7 years ago with my business partner, Chris Eastman. We have a similar story to many landscapers out there. I would say we're two St. Pete natives, along with Scotty's a St. Pete native too. And, we two guys in a truck and a push mower and knocking on doors and just asking for help, if you will. Looking to serve the general public, put some food on the table. And here we are as professionals. We employ over 80 employees, and we're proud to say that. We put food on their tables, if you will, with the services we provide. We're a full-service landscape company, commercial and residential. We do everything from landscape design to landscape enhancement, property maintenance. We take it as a landscape management perspective, if you will. Horticulture, fertilization, pest control, I could go on and on. Anything in the green industry. Everyone wants to be green,
right?
And we are green. So
one of the things I really loved about you guys when we had the chance to talk in advance was who you are inside, like deep down in your core. I'm a pretty good judge of character with people, and I usually can kind of peg them out, I guess, if you will. And we talked about even me eliminating people not coming on the show after the planning meeting, which is...
We made it.
It's an important part. We want really good guests that are genuine, that are very transparent, that do a good job, that have good reviews, and would do a good job if we connected you with one of our clients, because it's important to me and it's important to my team. And I think who you guys are as not only professionals, but as people inside resonates with a lot of who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, Fieldstone, just like any business, is an opportunity to serve the general public and to affect people, whether positive or negative. I think we have to be intentional about that. But the opportunity to affect others exponentially, right? I can only touch so many people, but with the people on my team like Scott and so on and so forth, we have just an awesome core group.
That's our strength. The core that Mike and Chris have brought on has made Fieldstone grow the way it's grown, and so quickly. We have a great group of guys, great management staff that hold true to our core values. Integrity, quality, and culture, and that's what we strive for every day. And that's what Fieldstone really is all about.
What I tell my team, and I say this all the time kind of internally, if you will, I say, I can teach anybody the business. I can teach anybody how to write contracts. I can teach anybody how to understand the law that pertains to contracts. I can teach anybody the ins and outs of how to show a property and sell one. But what you can't teach is care. Mm-hmm. Like you can't teach who people are on the inside. They either have it or they don't. And when it comes to our business, as far as buying and selling real estate, it's usually people's biggest asset, it's their biggest liability, and it's their biggest monthly payment. So it's really important to us to make sure they like where they live, and some of these people spend a lot of money. Some of our clients, just like some of the people you guys serve, they spend a lot of money, $500,000, $1 million on up on properties. And so landscape's pretty important to them too. It's a big part of their investment.
It's a huge part. I mean, it's a 20% of the value of your property is basically what we tell the customer. I mean, the curb appeal.
So let's talk
huge.
about for that a second and just break it down in real numbers, because I think the easier you can make it look black and white, the easier it is to understand, because you could say 20% and that could fly right by somebody listening in the car. Right. But if you have, let's say, $100,000 property, okay, 20% is going to be $20,000.
Correct.
Of their value. And then you go to the other end of the spectrum, and let's say you have a property that's $1 million.
Yeah. We like to get those contracts.
That's a huge chunk. I mean, and the thing about it is, and I'll tell you from a real estate perspective, if you don't maintain your lawn and it doesn't look right, and I'm not even going to give the show a date, but I've been on listing appointments pretty recently, and and sometimes, with the economy, people are in different places and they don't have the money. But when I pull up and I see crap in the yard and stuff everywhere, it's stuff really the homeowners could do, or they could pay a 15-year-old kid down the street even to do. It's a huge part. And I will tell you, we talked about this yesterday. We pulled up to properties and clients literally will not get out of the car sometimes if they don't like the outside.
That's true. I mean, the fact that, some people say, I'll just go ahead and put down some sod and I'll throw a tree or two in here. Well, if you don't put in the proper irrigation, if you're not taking the time to manicure it, it makes a huge difference. And that's the first thing I see when, I'm going and looking at houses. I like to on weekends go look around, and the first thing that catches my eye is the front. It's the yard. And if you see, 12 inches of grass and trees overhanging, you're automatically turned off.
Wasn't it you that brought up a point yesterday, or who was it we were talking about they didn't like the inside of the house and they wouldn't even go inside? You said that too.
Yeah.
Who was that? A friend of yours, or who was that? Somebody you know?
I won't use names.
Somebody you know.
It's somebody I know. Yeah. They have a beautiful home. They've spent a lot of money and time in the backyard. But the front yard, you'd look and you'd be like, this is not the right neighborhood. This can't be it. But you go in the backyard and you're like, oh my gosh, it's $1 million home. But they haven't made it to the front yard. I need to push them to
so what's the price point look like for that home? Like generically speaking?
I mean, that's a $700,000 home.
Okay. So $750,000 in the front yard is not, you got whatever the weeds are that grow in the landscape. That's your field, not mine.
Yeah, I'm like, let's throw in some irrigation. Let's put in some lighting, some new turf down, throw a couple, palms, some shrubs, and all of a sudden you have an entirely different home.
Yeah, and if you look at it, I mean, really, what we all do in the service industry every day is educate our clients. I mean, we're in the business of, that's what we're doing now. We're here to serve by educating, and that's what that individual obviously has not been educated yet. He's a friend of mine too, so I won't name names.
Right.
But once they see the value of once they recognize the value of what our service provides. And just like any service in the service industry, they'll act.
It makes a huge difference. I can't stress it enough, and you guys see it. Let's talk about some of the software that you guys mentioned, because I thought, in the day and age, I mean, obviously between the apps and the technology we have, it's amazing. And you guys can basically simulate an entire landscape design by just simply taking a picture of the front of the house. Yeah,
one of the greatest things for us now is, it used to be a piece of paper, and here's the X is the palm, the O is the shrub, and here's the layout. Now,
wait, don't forget about the little guy with the shovel.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot all about that.
Yeah, we had that for sure. But now we go out and we take a photo with the iPhone and bring it back, put it in 3D Landscape Pro. Well, if it's a board member or a homeowner or whatever, we sit down and we say, what are you looking for? You want St. Augustine grass? Do you want zoysia grass? What kind of palms do you want? What kind of shrubs? Do you want it tiered? We get all that information, we bring it back, and then our landscape designer in-house goes over everything, implements it to the T. We bring it back to the homeowner and say, is this what you're looking for? And then we get the people that are like, you know that place called Disney? That's really what I'm looking for. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a little while. Okay, but the nice thing is we bring it back to them, and they get to see exactly what they're paying for. So, we give that to our enhancement manager. They're the ones that go out there and do the install. They have the picture right there. They know exactly what the homeowner wants.
And I'll say too that it's challenging because we have we have a great opportunity to actually show our end product. There's a lot of services. An electrician goes in, with respect, my uncle's an electrician, and he does, and they flick the light switch on, and that's great. But once he does his service, but when we do this, we're the end of the project.
Yes.
And it affects people's emotions.
You get the fun part.
That's exactly right, and we're okay with that.
It's interesting. It's a lot like home staging. And home stagers, I have my ASP Realtor Stager designation, and I work with some stagers in the Bay Area, and we've staged a lot of properties together, from the smallest to some of the biggest. And it's interesting because a lot of the times, and it should be, part of a stager's plan, and the good stagers always have a written plan, right? Like, I didn't even realize this one day till I had my stager that I work with on the show. And he said, Katrina, I put together this whole vision and looking at what I have and what we need to get, and I literally write out a whole plan. So if I were to get sick, someone could literally pick up my notes and run with it. And I thought that's the difference between a professional and somebody that's not. But part of their process is also the front. Mm-hmm. I mean, I want to give you an example while we're on topic. There's this property in Live Oak, okay, and it was pretty new. The clients of mine actually moved to South Tampa. They had originally lived there, and it was just too far of a commute for them, and they wanted to live in South Tampa. So this property had been through 2 other agents before I got it, and I was going into a listing appointment. So I'm looking through all the notes. I'm looking at the days on market. I'm looking at all this stuff, and I drove by the property. So, at this point, I'm trying to, what is it? Because usually when a property's been on the market for a long time, there's a couple reasons why it doesn't sell.
Right.
Either it's not accessible, it can't be shown. The location, which the location's not bad. It's not what the seller wanted, but there's a lot of people that want to live in New Tampa, so that's not it. Mm-hmm. Price has a lot to do with it, and it wasn't the price, even though we were in a declining market. And I looked at it, and there were some things that were definitely the price. And I'm certainly not by any means as extensive as you guys. But what I did do was when I drove by to look at the property before I went on the listing appointment, I actually took a photo of the front of the house. And then I had it developed, like a picture I could actually hand them, not something on my phone, not something on my iPad, like something I could hand them.
Something tangible.
And so when we did the initial consultation, I said, I'm sure there's a lot of reasons and theories why your home hasn't sold, but I'll tell you what I think, and you have this big house. It was probably, I think it was about 5,000 square feet. I'm trying to remember, but it was 2-story, and it literally looked like a big gray box. And I told him that, and I handed him the picture, and I said, I'm looking at this, and you know what I see? A big gray new box. And the home just doesn't have any design and appeal. So I said, here's my thoughts. I'm going to get with the stager. This is what I think it's going to cost you. I'm going to give you a ballpark, but let's bid it out. So what I did and what my ideas were, and they kind of took the job and ran with it, but I had general ideas. I said, you know what? Let's order a big palm tree for the side. Mm-hmm. Let's put some you guys will have to, I know we're going to talk about palms later, but the 3 palms that usually grow in a group, they stay a little bit shorter.
Triple stock.
Thank you. Whatever that palm is.
Right.
Thank you.
Robolini, yeah.
So we put one of those. We added a bunch of colorful stuff like crotons and just things that bloom and have a lot of color and give it some nice look.
Right on.
We also added a bunch of red mulch, and then, to try to stay within their budget, because they obviously couldn't afford to repaint the whole house, nor did they need to, because it looked nice. We changed the color of the trim. So those are the things we do as a very small budget. I mean, right? That stuff's not super expensive
work within
to do.
The budget, though. Yeah, yeah.
But when you're done with a project like that and you look at before and after, what's the impact on that? Like, what kind of stuff do you guys hear when and I know you know the house. Like, as I'm describing this, you can see the house in your mind of something you've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The McMansion that has no, and you were talking about the big gray box. Absolutely. And that just is what it is. That's what the architects and the engineers and everything, it's what they came up with, and that's wonderful. And then they somehow forget about us, right? And that's okay. We don't take it personal.
Well, you don't have to be good at everything, but you need to be good at one thing. And if they're good at the design of the house, so be it. But then they need to go to you.
Simplify and focus. Come to us, and we'll take care of it. But the beautiful thing about to your point is what you're doing is you're breaking up those hard edges and those big open spaces of just concrete or of wood. You have these big blotches of nothing, and you're breaking up those edges. You'll see a lot of times we'll place our landscape designer, Adam Parrott's awesome, very, very good landscape designer. And he'll come to the edges, and he'll put palms on the corners of the homes, and that's not just a parentheses on the home, but it's actually breaking up that edge, that corner. When we see a big open space like that, nobody wants to see a big wall. You want to break it up with some softness. And I'm an analogy guy, so I actually kind of picture what we do, and adding that additional landscaping is kind of like if you don't have it, it's kind of like walking out. I don't wear makeup typically. But
it depends on what day of the week it is, right?
But it's kind of like a lady walking out without makeup and no accessories. When you put the accessories on, a little blush, it just pops. Everyone, and you feel that confidence. You can have a whole new
girlfriend 2 hours later with some makeup.
Right?
Great analogy.
Sorry, I probably should have planned that one.
No, that's great. That's real, and this is real radio, and I love that. And this is absolutely what my show is about.
Perfect.
I mean, anybody listening to Tampa Home Talk that would be my followers that would listen to this would expect this. So it's perfect.
Good. That's great.
Do you have any more to add to that analogy?
Yeah, no. You got to dwell on that for a little while. Let's have some silence.
Speaking of which, we actually have to take a real quick break here on Tampa Home Talk. If you missed any part of our show today, you can catch the show in its entirety because I know people are getting in and out of the car. They're busy, but we'll be here every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. You'll catch our show via a podcast. Just search for Tampa Home Talk, and you can find us across the web on Facebook and Twitter at Tampa Home Talk. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell. Thank you so much for rejoining us today. If you missed the first part of our show, you may want to catch it out in its entirety. We're available via a podcast at tampahometalk.com, also on Facebook and Twitter across the web at Tampa Home Talk. In studio today, we have Scott Leroy and Mike Thackrey with Fieldstone Landscape. And we went into some of the details regarding how to spruce up those plain, boxy looking houses and a bunch of really awesome details. You guys made a good point during the break. Maybe you should chime in on real quick. We talked about, I'm tongue tied today. We were talking about the Home Depot and Lowe's, the normal go do it yourself type of thing. They have the mulch always on sale, and residential does a lot of the red mulch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We say, we always try to educate people. We always hear, red mulch, and kind of a big red flag for us because, we see people spending so much money on the plant material, and we want the color to actually come from the plant material, not the actual mulch underneath. So it's something that when you're driving, through residential communities, you see tons of red mulch. But what we try to educate our homeowners is that, cocoa, brown mulch, there's black mulch, there's pine bark, there's other things that will give the plants more of a pop than the red on the ground. The
black mulch is actually beautiful.
I actually
put that in my house.
I have it in my house. I have black mulch. Yeah, I do. It's just, it looks like a fresh layer of black topsoil all the time. So the colorful plants just pop.
Yes, for sure. And so for commercial, a lot of times they're going to go with the darker stuff, right?
Yeah, a lot of times with commercial, we use a lot of Melaleuca, and the reason for that is, when you have a lot of rains and you get washout onto the sidewalks, it actually has it sticks. So when it rains, you don't get that washout that you get with the pine bark.
Where half your mulch is down the street.
Exactly. Yeah, you just put it in yesterday. That can be frustrating.
Absolutely. So since we're in spring, let's talk about some ideas, some landscapes, some plants. Any thoughts and trends you guys are seeing now to kind of spruce up for spring, since that's part of the topic of our show?
I was thinking about that. And what one thing that we do. So you spend the money on your and you make the investment on your landscape, and whether residential, commercial, it doesn't matter. You allot that amount, and you go and you have your basic setup. Every year you're seeing the same thing. You're getting used to the same plants. I was thinking about this in my front yard, walking out this morning, prepping my mind for the show. But you look, and one thing that we do to kind of add some personality to it is an annual rotation. We go in and typically 4 times a year. I mean, some clients, the higher end clients like the Leroy and some really resort style communities, they want us to do it every month or every other month, 6 times a year. But then we can go in and change out with some pentas. I think right now we have a rotation of coleus going out to our properties. And
So explain what some of those plants look like if someone listening is not familiar, and I'm by far not the horticulturist by any means.
Right.
You
explain what
flowers.
They look like.
You think flowers. You think, pentas. We're putting in a lot of pentas right now, white, purple, pink, red. And then we'll do sometimes just big mixtures, and we'll do patterns and we'll do swoops. It just depends on what the client looks for.
That makes sense.
We we're happy to say that we now are servicing and actually working on the Buck's new head coach's house, and they like swoops of white and pink. That's what they want. So we're doing giant swoops of white.
They didn't
and
do
pink
it in the Bucks colors. I'm so disappointed.
Well, not this rotation, but
next time.
Probably next
rotation. Talk them into. If we have a winning rotation,
there you go.
Winning season, you have to change your landscape out to match the Bucks colors.
And I'll have to probably end up doing like Bucks flag designs in the yard.
Sweet.
But really though, if you look at it, it kind of puts that nice new fresh look. And the whole point is you don't have to refresh the entire landscape. You just have that one area, that impact area that you're walking by all the time. When you have a guest, they notice that you changed something in the landscape. So,
which I would imagine is a lot like home ownership. Like the taboo word in our house is deferred maintenance, because it's a real estate term and we use it all the time. And so deferred maintenance is like, regular homeowner maintenance, things you're supposed to be doing, and then you let it go for such a period of time that now it's a big ticket item. Yeah. And I would imagine that landscape is a lot like that with what you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. You could relate it to even your own body. We have to take care of our own body. We have to maintain. And sometimes, and this is in terms of educating the clients, is we have to realize that when we add $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 worth of landscaping, now we have to reassess who and how it's being managed along the way. And managed, we see managed buzzword for us. It's really maintained.
Because it's part of your plan, right?
Absolutely.
With the client.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we love doing installs for residential, and we have good residential relationships with companies that if we've done that, then we'll refer them to them. We know they'll be taken care of on that side. Mm-hmm. On the commercial side, we prefer to have the contract before we do any, maintenance work, because then we can warranty the plants. We know they're getting watered at the right times. We know they're getting the right fertilizers. We're in control of it. So if something dies, we have to warranty it. And we're fine with that because we have control of that.
And I imagine sometimes you just get a defective plant, right? It happens.
It happens all the time.
So I know we talked about palms, right? Because everybody we're in Florida, especially if they're from somewhere else, they always want palms. They love palms. But there's so many different variations of palms. Do you know how many, out of curiosity?
Oh, no.
No.
A lot.
I think there's literally like 100, isn't
there?
There's
a lot. Yeah, there's a whole bunch. And there's different regions, when you go up into the Lutz region or you're dealing down on St. Pete Beach or Sarasota, we're dealing with different regions, different climates. So really the right plant, right place we have to take into consideration.
Plus the salt water probably has a factor.
It's huge. And that's one thing for any homeowner that's looking to put it in anything. There's a website, and it's floridayards.org.
Okay.
And so anything that you're looking for, whether it's a flower, a shrub, a palm, you can go in there and customize exactly what you want. So the questions that they'll ask are, how much water does the area get? Is it a sun place? Is it a shade place? Is it partial? What's the soil condition like? Is it clay? Is it sand? Is it a salty area right there on the water? And then it'll actually give you a database of exactly what your
what are the best plants for your yard? That's sweet.
Yeah, and we use it a lot. If we're out at Point Brittany, we know they get a huge sea breeze. So put in high salt. It's a sandy base, so we know, we click in those, and then we get our choices, and we know what will have the best chance to live out there.
It makes sense, because it's the same reason why you can't take plants from other regions up north and bring them here, because they either can't tolerate the heat or they don't like the soft, sandy soil.
Yeah, and when you're doing a landscape design, when we turn it into our design department, if you will, and they go through what we were talking about, pro landscape and producing this design, we take into effect, it's very important, and we talked about this yesterday with your clients, we have to set expectations and also hear expectations. I think we have to be better listeners, because our clients tell us what the purpose. For instance, we'll talk about the palms. If it's a focal point palm, we might want to do something fun like a Bismarck. Bismarcks are real majestic and wide, and they need room to grow. Medjool palms are beautiful. They're the ones you see down the side of the highway, and they're just beautiful palms out of the west and out of the deserts, if you will. And then if it's just an accent piece, we can go a little lower, and we can go with like an Adonidia or a foxtail, which we can actually light those up and make those look beautiful too. But they're not so much focal point palms, if you will. So.
We'll have to have your arborist on sometime just to do a whole segment on palm trees. I think that would be such a cool show. Like, it's something I'm curious about and have been for years.
That'd be great.
I'm like, I should write a blog on the number of palms.
It's unbelievable, and it's the right plant, the right place. You look, and then it comes down to budget too. A lot of people say, "Oh, I want this big grand Bismarck," and then they say, "What's the budget?" "Well, I got a couple $100." well, let's start looking at small foxtails because that Bismarck's about $5,000.
Or just the plant.
Just the plant.
Yeah.
And I'll share too. And Scotty used this application in his backyard in the northeast part of St. Petersburg. There, we one thing that we've seen is people utilizing landscape material instead of fencing. So he needed a fence.
I love that.
It's beautiful. So he used Areca palms, Alabuki viburnum. You can let them grow, trim them once a year, hand prune them. They're not a formal trim, if you will. You just pull out the dead and so on. And they're very manageable because you don't have to manage them. You let them go.
That's awesome. I mean, really, a lot of people I know in this day and age work a lot, like me, probably like you guys.
Yes, man.
So the more stuff you can get that kind of takes care of itself, it's low maintenance and it looks good. I think that should be a huge factor when you're trying to plan and prepare for your landscape.
Yeah, luckily I love it. I mean, I definitely spend at least an hour or two on the weekend on the back and front yard just because I got a little bit of everything back there.
And
it's a slight jungle.
And you said something right there, low maintenance. I think there's no such thing as no maintenance, but there is low maintenance,
right.
And that's just picking the right plant material and so on.
Absolutely.
We have something, one of my...
I guess if you live in the desert and you want a cactus, then you could probably get away with no
Perfect. Yeah, or if you live in the woods and just don't care, right?
Yeah.
Just let it go.
That's true. I don't know what that husband would look like, but anyway. So let's talk about why someone should work with a landscape designer. Like, why? What's a good reason for someone to do that? Obviously, other than it's 20% of the value.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have the ideas in your head and you think, like, this is exactly what I'm picturing in my mind. But to actually get that out there and looking exactly like you want it, having that designer, they can, do everything, give you the visual that you can see. And you know exactly what you're paying for at the end of the day. And that way you can go back and you can keep tweaking. Maybe what you originally pictured wasn't exactly, what the design came out to be. And you just go, it's a process. And we just go back and forth and back and forth.
The interesting thing, too, with professionals, and I imagine you probably see this when you get into waterfalls and that kind of stuff, you have to think about the whole picture. And so part of your job as a professional is, would you, like one of the things my husband wanted to do was put a waterfall kind of like against the house and have it running towards the front. And I'm like, no. Like, because water is not your house's friend.
Right. No.
So, it's kind of one of those things where, like, yeah, it might sound like a cool idea in theory, but, professional people and people that see stuff later in the whole thing, they're going to be able to give you a lot of insight.
Absolutely.
That you're not going to have.
Well, and you protect your investment with working with a professional because of what you just said. Someone who's looking at it every single day, looking at the same, not just the beginning of the project, but they've seen the beginning, middle, and end many times in the last week. Right, just over and over. And, I was thinking about when Scott was saying that about why to use a landscape designer. It ties into that because, using the right plant in the right place, if you put a plant material up against the seawall that is not salt tolerant and you don't know that, well, right. you're wasting your money. I mean, honestly, and we don't want that.
The poor plant, you don't want to kill it either.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
And it helps. It really helps with the budget.
Yeah.
If you have somebody and you can say, okay, this is what I have to work with. What can we do? Let's get creative. This is the stuff I like. Can it actually happen? And they can make it happen.
Okay, so let's dive into the next thing. And I have this palm. We've been in our house for 10 years. That was probably right about the roof line. Mm-hmm. And now it's so tall we can't even trim it unless we get a cherry picker. It's that big. Mm-hmm. Like one of those things that go 40 feet in the air. So let's talk about the licensed, insured landscape contractors as opposed to, the people that would always drive by my house. Hey, I was doing your neighbor's palm down the street. Can I trim your palm? I know why I think that's not a good idea. But
if it falls on your roof, I'm sorry. And you'll never see me again.
I mean, outside of that, what if they fall when they're trimming the palm?
Absolutely.
That's true.
Absolutely. And we look at the
I should have an attorney on the show to chime in for that one.
Right. Actually, I am an attorney also. No. It's a great point. It's a point that gets talked about a lot, and you just see it on people's trucks, licensed and insured, and it's wonderful. It protects your family, protects your homestead, if you will, in terms of injury and lawsuit and so on if someone gets hurt. But
and people can, if they fall and get hurt, they can lien your property. They 100%. Can put a judgment against you, and it does attach to real estate.
And it happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's the scary thing, is it very much happens. And in terms of certification, our industry has low barriers to entry, meaning that we have minimal official, like state regulations, if you will, in terms of the green industry. We do have some with our irrigation contractor license,
and arborist.
Our arborist license, and our horticulture license, and so on. So for pest control and so on. But we do have some, but not all are required, such as like an electrician or let's say a plumber, a general contractor, right? Therefore we have a lot of fly-by-night companies or individuals, which opens up homeowners to that danger of that happening. So, one place that we go, and we're committed as a company, Fieldstone's committed to education. We put our money where our mouth is. We actually host testing for the state. FNGLA.
What do you mean by you host testing with the state?
Well, okay, so there's an organization called FNGLA,
which stands for
Florida Nursery Growers and Landscape Association. If there was anyone who governs us, that's who it is. It's unofficial in terms of state regulation, but it's an excellent organization. It's a Florida-based organization.
So it's a lot like what we talked about in our planning meeting, how home inspectors for the longest time until like 3 years ago were not regulated.
Right.
We would have to rely on their credentials for like American Society of Home Inspectors or ASHI because there was no entity that regulated them. And so your business, you're saying, is pretty much like that still.
Yeah, so what we do, exactly, and what we do is we go to them for education. They've already organized education and organized the testing and certifications. And we partnered with them and said, hey, listen, we'll host it. And it's open. When we say hosting it at our office in Clearwater, we actually host the testing in the classes, and we offer it to our team, but also we have competitors.
So you open it up to everybody. That's awesome.
It used to be a P-Tech, and then we just kept...
What is P-Tech?
It's the night school.
Pinellas Technical.
Okay,
Institute,
gotcha.
Like that, right.
Yeah, and they...
well, it's probably nice for them because they can use your office, and I'm sure you don't charge them, and they don't have the overhead, which they have to pass on to the people taking the course.
And we have equipment there. We have things they can see to really see if this is the business they want to be in. And the nice thing is once they go through the night school and they have their horticulture license and they have it, and you still have to do CEUs to continue the education to hold it. But that is a huge part of our industry.
So talk about horticulturists and their regulation of the company and then where you guys play a big part of that, because you guys have more.
So we're like I said, we're committed to it. But I think, like I said, you got to look at from a company's perspective. You can say you're committed to something, but let's see where you spend your time or your money, right? Put your money where your mouth is. And we actually have, and we've given scholarships internally to our team members and so on, incentivizing them and helping them. We've even financed the opportunity because it's about
going to school or whatever.
Right, exactly. And we actually boast proudly. My mom says I can't boast, but I think in this situation is okay. We have the most certified horticulture professionals through that FNGLA, so FCHPs through FNGLA, a lot of acronyms there, but in the state of Florida. So including municipalities, the largest landscape companies in the world are in our market. In one team, we have the most FCHPs on our team.
There's a lot to be said for that, I think, especially, you want to have the best of the best in your industry.
Well, and the nice thing is when we send those foremen out, we trust and know that they've been educated. They know what to look for. They know what fungus, if there's something being attacked, they can address it. And then we can send, the hort team out to address any issue. So it's great because they know what to look for now. It's not just, hey, I can go cut grass. Give me a weed eater.
Right.
I'm ready.
You forgot the edge on the weed whacker.
Yeah. I'll tell you, and there's a bigger commitment to the industry there, too, because the reality is not everyone stays, and some people advance or move on or move out of our city, if you will, and they get another job in the industry. Well, they're still certified. That's not our certification. That's their individual certification. So it's educating our industry as a whole in our market, if you will.
That is sweet. There's a lot to be said for that. I know we also asked you guys some of the top frequently asked questions you get, and we haven't even really chipped a dent in it. So when we come back in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about when's the best time of year to do landscape, what are some of the guidelines around watering newly built or newly installed landscape, and that type of stuff. If you missed any part of our show today here at Tampa Home Talk, catch us on the web at tampahometalk.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, and all of our shows are available on a podcast. Again, in studio today, we have Scott Leroy and Mike Thackrey with Fieldstone Landscape Services. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell on the Real Estate Radio Network. Thank you so much for rejoining us for the last part of our show. If you missed any part of today's show, it is available via a podcast in its entirety with Fieldstone Landscape. Boy, I keep trying to mess that up, don't I? With Scott Leroy and Mike Thackrey. Awesome job. I've had a really awesome time with you guys in studio today. We've had a lot of fun, which is how I love doing the shows. And
we have to.
Thank you again so much for coming in.
Well, thanks for having us.
Cool opportunity. Thank you.
So we talked about so many other things. I don't even think I have enough time to recap, which is normally what we do. But so let's just jump into the next part. What's some of the best time of year to do landscape installation? I thought that was interesting. That's one of your frequently asked questions.
Yeah. Well, it's Florida, so there's always a good time, fall and spring. You know, we right now is when we are on full block for the next 4 or 5 weeks backed up. Is everybody right now?
I thought you were going to say 4 or 5 months.
No.
I wish.
Yeah. No, but it's right now. It seems to be that all of a sudden when literally June hit.
Is it Memorial Day? Is that like the trigger in people's mind?
It's like it is. Home Depot puts all the mulch out for sale, and everybody's like, "Wait a second, let's get things done."
We're late.
You know? And so literally now it's just it's taking off, and you know, from small projects to huge projects.
So with the water restrictions, do you know off the top of your head what the guidelines are with regards to newly installed landscape and plants? Like, is there still restrictions, or do you get some leniency?
You do, and it's actually really nice. You know, you're beautifying the city, so they want to. So no matter what the regulations are outside of the new planting, if you will, you can water for 30 days actually. Post new planting.
So every day for 30 days if you needed to?
That's right. And what we would suggest is to, talk to the plants, let them talk back to you. So when you get in that, you know, when you
Weird.
You're the plant whisperer, aren't you? I know it.
He does.
Something like that.
He goes out there and rubs the leaves, smells them. Yep.
Mike's in his Zen mode in the garden.
And the next thing you know, your basil's a foot taller.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah.
Game time. No, but really, I mean, after 3 weeks, if it's, you know, what you want to watch out for is fungus. You know, we're looking coming into a rainy season coming up here, you know, and you know, in the summertime, those afternoon showers, we're born and raised here, so we know about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you look up and here comes a storm.
Don't be out on your boat. You don't get stuck in that.
That's right. Been there, done that. Right?
I know, right? Anybody's done that, it's like, oh.
It's terrible. So we have, so I mean, I think you have to think about the season you're in, think about the trends that are going on. Don't just water just because you can. Water because it needs it, you know, and homeowners that want to be more involved, they can, you know, tweak that and go to the valves of the irrigation box and turn them on and so on. But they can work with their landscaper.
You were talking about fungus. Can you talk a little bit about that more? Because I wasn't quite following you all the way, and I'm sure if I wasn't, then the listener probably wasn't either.
Yeah, so a lot of times fungus will come from overwatering. There's, you know, wet feet in the plant, if you will. So if you're overwatering that plant material, it'll show fungus. There's a lot of different kinds of fungus that could put a different visual. You could Google image plant fungus, and you'll see what we're talking about. The one thing you want to avoid, if you do have wet feet in the plant, if it's very damp, is you want to avoid any nitrogen. You want to avoid any fertilizer because the fungus will increase greatly. You also want to avoid overwatering even more.
It's some of those things that, I guess unless you do that or you have a horticulture background, you probably don't even realize you're killing the plant. Like, that would be me.
Right. Yeah.
The running joke is I have the brown thumb, but I actually have a few, herbs and stuff I can use in the kitchen.
But you probably talk to them more. Right?
I don't remember, but maybe if I talk to them, they'll grow a little better.
It's
I'm
all
gonna try.
A relationship.
Yeah.
It's communication.
My mom used to talk to her plants. I think she still does. She's got the greenest thumb ever. So you're onto something right there.
Right on.
Showing them love. You got to show them love.
So what about the spots in the lawn? Like if it's yellow or if it's dead or if it's brown, like is that the dog peeing on the grass or what is that?
We talked a little bit about that yesterday. You know, different types of grass.
You love my sense of humor.
I do.
Seriously though.
Well, St. Augustine is what you see out here most of the time. And with that, you know, brown spot could be, you know, an overspray of Roundup. It could have been, fungus starting. It could be chinch bugs. That's something we deal with a lot around here. With zoysia, if it is a yellow spot, then it's probably a dog.
I have to comment on the chinch bugs because it was one of the big chain nationwide companies. I had a client actually tell me that they grabbed one of those bugs. I think it was one of those bugs or some bug that was in the lawn, put it in a plastic Ziploc bag and taped it to their door and said, "This is what you have in your grass." It didn't go over so well with the
that's
client.
one way to communicate. Over communication, I guess.
I was shocked. I had never heard of that.
Wow.
And that's what she said. And I was like, really?
If you don't address those, they'll take your whole yard. I mean, they will. That's one thing. If you start noticing big brown patches and you can see it almost like a reddish tint on the outside of the green, then that's something to get a horticulture company out there.
Absolutely.
And so one of the other frequently asked questions you guys get is what type of service is provided after the installation? You want to dive in on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would just say, we have to understand. That when we make that initial investment, like we talked about before, is now we have to maintain that investment, and you have to have the plan prior to, if you will. But understanding that everything is integrated, everything goes together in terms of our services provided, the irrigation, the pest control, the preventative pest control, the fertilization program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the maintenance services, how we're going to prune, what plant materials, the seasonal pruning, all that goes together. That's kind of why we back up and say, you know what, we're landscape managers. We're not just landscape maintenance. That's one service that we offer is the landscape maintenance. And any professional company, and there's many around that offer these services, they understand the integration, and it's hard when a client wants to pull something off, like, no, I'll take care of the irrigation. Well, that's great. But if I'm putting down a product or a chemical that needs to be watered in, and I don't have control of that water, if I'm not managing the water, it can cause problems. So really understanding that whole integration of all the services that we provide is imperative, very imperative.
So what if you're somebody like me, and I'm all about let's pay the guy. And I'll just tell you how it works in my house. I told you I was married for 16 years, been together for 20 years, got 3 kids. Right. But me, I'm all about let's pay the guy. And my husband's like, no, I can do it. I don't want to pay the guy to do what I can do. But you work 1 million hours a week, and so do I. So this is like the regular fight we have in our house. So let's say you have somebody like that, and they're starting, or they have this type of thing going. What are the no-nos for that? And then a lot of times I imagine you guys pick up those type of accounts. But what are the landscape no-nos, if you will?
Well, you just kind of wait and see what the husband, after a few 6 months, and all of a sudden he's out there and he's like yelling at the yard, and there's brown spots everywhere, and he's like, all right, give me a company. Just give me a company.
That's not actually how it would work in my house. It would be like, honey, I came home. Wow, who was here? Who did the lawn?
Somebody sprayed something on the
yard. House today. I know it wasn't you.
Well, I mean, like he's saying, the education process is not. It is also sometimes. I used to say that we learn the hard way, and now we just call it the way. Right. So sometimes we have to go through failure to learn. Right. So that's
our biggest job is honestly when we get a chance to get in front of a board, we sit up there. So many of them, feel that they're landscape experts. I've taken care of my yard for 20 years and I know everything there is to know. And we get up there and we have a chance to speak with them. And we just say, we have all the professionals who have the schooling, who have the licenses, and we can educate them on what the right plan is, what the right technique is. And that's what we hope that they'll be open to. And as much as we can educate them, and that's what we love to do. And
it's a true partnership. I mean, the reality is we want homeowners that want to be involved and want to understand what's going on. We really do, because they're our eyes and ears on the day-to-day. When we're not there servicing the property, they can make a phone call and say, hey, I'm seeing what you told me about. Can you help?
Plus, I imagine it makes your job easier because you don't have somebody going, hey, what happened?
We love boards that are, proactive with us, that want to walk the grounds, that want to make it better. Those are the clients that we look for. We get some that just say, hey, just get it done. Here's what the scope of work is. Just do it. And of course, boom, we take it and we run with it. But the other ones that want to walk the property and, beautify it, that's our ideal person.
It's always nice to work with people who value what you do.
Yes, and they appreciate it.
Yeah.
I think in this day and age, we're all so busy that, and I've had clients like that. Some of them I love them to death. They're like family. But a couple of them, they've worked with me for so long, they're like, just get it done. I don't need to talk about it anymore. You got it. I'm done. I'm out. You just let me know if you need me.
Absolutely.
And it's just kind of how they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what Florida Friendly Green Industries BMP education program, was that what we talked about? about a few minutes ago in the last segment? Okay, and then so what type of research should you look for when you're getting ready to hire a landscaper?
You can always Google, you can always do that, but word of mouth. I would literally look around to the HOAs in the area, Tampa Bay area that you see that are nice. We didn't get the Vinoy because we were just an average landscape company. We haven't held it for over 3 years because we're an average landscape company. You look for the companies that are doing places like that. When you drive by the Vinoy, you see, you're like, wow, this place is pretty amazing.
I'm going to be watching. If I ever see a spot out, I'm going to let you know.
You're going to call us out and call us out.
We're watching too.
They are. They are definitely watching. But that's what I would say. I was look for properties around the Tampa Bay market that you see and you drive by and you're like, wow, who is doing that property? I need to talk to them. Or you could just give us a call.
So do you stick a sign in the yards?
No, it depends on the property. And Scott's absolutely right. There was a time in our business cycle and as a company when we were trying to mature and trying to grow, and we didn't have references to back up our work. So we were fighting, scratching, and crawling, and we're still hungry. But the reality is now we can say, hey, look, contact these relationships that we have.
Well, you got a couple notches in your belt. You have some references you can give out that are good, viable references.
Absolutely,
definitely.
It's interesting because in all walks of life and in any business you're in, I think you have to care more about the finished product and the result at the end of the day. And you have to, I think the businesses that are going to make it in the next generation that we're in, which is a lot of the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings that are learning differently. And I think even my kids, where they're getting ready to change Common Core next year, which is another whole show in itself. But it's the whole point and the principle behind Common Core is a different way of thinking. And I don't know how much you know about it, but long story short, the reason why they're changing this is because we're getting behind a lot of other nations. And they say that we need to teach our kids how to create jobs for themselves, how to think outside of the box, because a lot of things in the information technology age are that way.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
No one has a job as a shomaker anymore. That's the point.
Right. And we talked about this yesterday. We're touching on it. Overriding concept is that we're all in the people business. We're all dealing with personalities and people, and you have to genuinely care about people. Plant material is very important. It's not as important as the person that's paying for it, if you will. So.
And one of the best things about this job, and one of the reasons why I came to Fieldstone, is you really appreciate something when you step up to it, and all of a sudden it's this, I'll call it dirt bowl. And then all of a sudden, my crews leave at the end of the day, and it's beautifully green, and there's annuals flowing everywhere, and you sit back and you say,
and it looks like Disney.
Man, I did something good today, and I love it.
You have to love what you do. And we've told our kids that 1,000,000 times over. If you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life.
It's true.
And you have to, you have to like the people you're working with, too, which is a big part of that. Because if you don't love who you're working with, at the end of the day, at some point, you're not going to like your job anymore.
That's for sure. Yeah.
So our slogan, I don't know if you've heard it, but love where you live or we'll fix it.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of like the same thing for you guys, but it's important. You have to love where you live, right? If you don't, that's usually why we're there.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great slogan.
Thank you.
Trademark.
Love where you live.
Love it.
I'm shaking. He's bake.
I love it.
There it is.
So did you guys pull any landscape jokes for me?
No, just natural. Just natural jokes.
What you got? Because we got to wrap up the show.
No.
I know you have something good.
No. Really, I no Google jokes. I didn't want to. For us, we like to be genuine, like we talked about before, and typically we're way over the top already.
Yeah.
Way over the top.
I totally forgot the tequila. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, maybe next time.
I didn't.
You guys have been so awesome. You've been so much fun, and I can't wait to have another show with somebody from your team. And we'll bring some of your top horticulturists. Am I saying that?
Yeah, horticulturists.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
And to talk about different plants and that kind of stuff whenever Arbor Day is, and or Earth Day, or maybe somewhere in the middle.
There you go. Okay.
That'd be great.
So what do you guys have before we close the show? Because we've got about a minute left. Anything else?
No, absolutely. I just want to say thanks for the opportunity. Every chance you get to meet new people and to educate on what we do. And like we said, we like doing business with people who value what we do in terms of our services. But like I said, the overriding value is in the people. And we appreciate meeting you, Katrina, and it's been awesome.
Thank you. The pleasure's been all mine to have you guys on my show.
Yeah,
and
thank you very much.
Again, we have Scott Leroy and Mike Thackrey with Fieldstone.
Thank you.
And It's been an amazing show. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having us.
If you missed any part of our show today at Tampa Home Talk with Fieldstone Landscape, you can catch it in its entirety on a podcast. And we are also available on Twitter, Facebook, and across the web. Just search for Tampa Home Talk. We'd love for you to check out our show. We're also here on Tan Talk Radio Network every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. on 1340, 1350, and 1400. Thanks so much for joining us today. But for today, we are out.